I'm Anna Marie Cox. And did an AI write this movie, Dan?
Hi, I'm Daniel Dresner. And Anna, I think Gareth Edwards and Chris Weitz would respond to your query with, please make love to yourself and then to your mother.
Welcome to Space the Nation, where we look at science fiction through the lens of...
negative control theory.
And the multiple principle problem. Today we'll be talking about The Creator, which is available... Dan, where is this available?
It's available at something called a movie theater, Anna. Now, a movie theater is a place where you go somewhere else and watch what you would otherwise maybe watch on your phone, but on a really big screen.
It's like twice the size of your phone.
Like... yeah, it's at least twice as large as your phone. Also, a bonus, they sell food that you can eat there. It's wildly overpriced, but for some reason, there are certain things that you can eat in that movie theater where, you know, it tastes better there.
But Dan, I understand other people are also in the theater.
That is correct. Although, actually, there were not that many people in the theater when I was watching this film. So,
should we get out of the way that people should go see this in a theater?
Yeah, let's put it this way. You will be better off having seen the film. It is worth the money to actually, and the time to actually go into a movie theater and watch this. Because if you wait for it to go, come on demand or a streaming service, it's not going to be as fun. Yeah. That would be the way I would put it. Yeah.
And we already had problems with it. And
oh yeah. Oh yeah. We're gonna rip this film like a little bit.
No.
Yeah.
Okay. But
we're going to nitpick this film.
Although it's also true, if I had not seen it in the theater, I wonder if the problems I had with it would bother me a lot more. Probably. I'm thinking.
We will talk about that.
All right.
But what are we going to be talking about in our subsequent episodes?
Well, we're going to be doing a really cool cannon fodder episode, Dan. Mm-hmm. The original cannon fodder. Frankenstein.
Yes. And by the way, just to be clear, not a movie Frankenstein, not James Whale's version, definitely not Kenneth Branagh's version. We're talking about the Mary Shelley novel, Frankenstein, which makes this the oldest intellectual property we will be doing on Space the Nation.
And we could read it just on anything, because it's not owned by anybody anymore. Like, we just print it out and read it.
Exactly.
And then sort of opposite of that, we're doing something very new. No One Will Save You, which is something that the Discord brought up. And then you also brought up. So we decided that seems like a confluence of bringing things up. So we'll do it. And we have lots of fun things planned, even though our most fun thing still isn't happening, which is we're going to revert to being a recap show for Andor, and that's no longer happening. So,
well, it's going to happen. It's just not happening until the second season of Andor comes out, which apparently is not going to be until 2024.
Right. But Dan, this writer's strike is over, so we can start. There'll be new things to talk about.
That's true. We're very happy about that.
Yes.
But we have a lot coming, planned out. And if you haven't yet, please consider becoming a patron. Our Patreon page is patreon.com/spacethenation.
I knew you'd get there, Dan. I knew you'd get there.
Also, a great way to support the show that costs you nothing. Rate and review it. Tell your friends and neighbors. Just generally create what I hear yes, that's the industry lingo. We want the buzz about it. Yes.
Blue sky it.
There we go. Skeet it. Yes.
Skeet it. And also, speaking of supporting the show, if you are not a patron, you may have noticed that your episodes now contain ads.
That's right. We have advertising. Yeah.
There is capitalism in this podcast, Dan.
Abso-fucking-lutely, Anna. Yeah.
I was going to ask, are you happy? Are you happy, Dan? Are you happy?
In the words of Emperor Palpatine, everything is proceeding as I have foreseen, Anna, on this point. Yes.
The best way to stick it to capitalism, if that's something that you care about, dear listener, is to not hear ads, is to support our labor directly by becoming a patron. As Dan said, patreon.com, or can I do it as Dan said it, which is
patreon.com.
Patreon.com/spacethenation. Patrons get episodes on Friday rather than Monday, so you have the whole weekend to relax and listen to it. And Dan, what else? Do you have anything to add about our venture into capitalism?
I think if there's one thing that both proponents and critics of capitalism can agree on, it is the virtues of eliminating the middleman. So I will say, if you become a patron, you get to pay us directly and don't have to listen to the man trying to make you pay indirectly. So I think, frankly, that's a win-win.
You don't have to be reminded of the emptiness in your soul that capitalism is trying to sell you things to fill.
Yeah.
Dan, how are you?
I'm doing well, Anna. After a week in which it was ridiculously cold for September, it is now back up to 70 around here. So it looks like it's going to be hopefully a pleasant fall. How are you, Anna?
Well, Dan, I'm not going to talk about the weather because I have really big news, which is I left my home. I left my home to go to
beyond going to the theater,
where there were other people that I had to talk to. I went to
did this, to be clear, voluntarily. You're not blinking. And, listeners, Anna is not blinking an SOS to me, so this is very promising.
I did it, no gun to my head. It was a Austin knitting meetup, Dan.
Oh my God. Wow. That is hardcore, Anna.
Yeah, and it went about how I thought it would. If you had asked me before, I had a good time. There was healthy snacks. A couple of things are funny. So it was kind of crunchy, folks, as you might expect. One thing that happened that was funny is we were talking about stuff and someone mentioned they had a pickup, and I was like, "Oh, you have a pickup?" Because I have some stuff that I need to move. And like other people were like, "Oh," like 3 people were like, "Oh, I have a pickup." So that's Austin.
Yeah.
Also, I mentioned missing a football game, and people were like, "Oh, what is fantasy football?" So that also I felt like it's Austin, Texas, right? So they have pickups.
Okay.
But fantasy football
is an alien concept to them? That's
not alien. They knew it existed, but they were like, what is that?
Okay. Okay. Fair enough.
And like I said, they're pretty crunchy. There's some new moms, a couple sort of normal / crunchy. And then there was another mom, a relatively new mom, who was sharing that her infant had a preference for which breast that they like to feed on.
Okay, that doesn't sound that unusual. Yeah,
because one of her nipples had been pierced multiple times.
Okay, there's the Austin angle. Yeah.
So
sure. Okay. Yep.
Lovely people. I'm probably going to go back. Also, I learned something called a Russian join, which sounds dirty, but
I hear that costs extra. Like if it lasts longer than an hour or something.
It's more expensive than the Trump special. The Russian join. It's a way of putting your yarn together.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good to know.
Anyway, I left the house. I'm very excited, very proud of myself.
I'm happy for you, Anna. This is good.
I met
this is
some
good
people,
for you.
And
and they were all people. They weren't simulants or AI or anything like that.
Simulants or AI, which does bring us back to what we're talking about. The creator, Dan. Why are we doing this?
This was my idea, and I confess this was because having gone to other movie theaters to watch other films.
It still seems new. We still make a big deal about it because it still seems new.
But this trailer was shown multiple times, and it's a good trailer. The trailer showed significant promise and hinted at, some really... Actually, I think the trailer actually displays the strengths of the film. The weaknesses are a little more well hidden, which is true of any decent trailer. But it was promising enough that I thought it merited watching.
Yes, this trailer does showcase the strengths and also one of the weaknesses, which is the terrible name, which we will talk about.
We'll talk about later. Yes, we're going to get to that.
It's a weirdly bad name for this movie. I mean, it fits, but anyway, yes, the trailer was good. Gareth Edwards. I'm not a huge Rogue One fan, but Monsters is supposed to be really good. His Godzilla is supposed to be good.
It's okay.
Sure, let's go for it. I'm easily swayed by your recommendations, Dan.
Thank you. The way that, a lot of the reviews pointed this out, and I think it's true. The one thing Gareth Edwards does extremely well is give you a sense of scale. Like, he does really big stuff very well. Like, when the Death Star was, rising over the planet Scarif right before he destroys it and so forth. And that works to his advantage in this film as well. Yeah.
Yes. And will this podcast ruin it for people, Dan? If they listen to this podcast first, will it ruin the movie?
Yeah, I think it will. Just first of all, there are some plot twists. So, if you care about those things, definitely go see it. If you care about things like plot and ending and a sense of closure, sure, I guess you should go see the film. I mean,
Oh, pedestrian.
Yeah. Also, I cannot stress this.
Pre-modernist.
Bourgeois, Anna. I think that's the yes.
Yeah.
But I cannot stress this enough. Go see this in a fucking theater. A lot of the film's value added comes from the effects, which we'll talk about. Also, the sort of wide angle, the massive dimensions of the film. You will be more awestruck watching this in a theater. And so I would strongly recommend going to see it. But I would say that my hunch is that watching it on a smaller screen, it will go from good to not quite as good. And there are things that are worth seeing in the theater, and this is definitely one of those films that I think is worth seeing.
I agree. I think the plot twists are rather, it's not just that I'm kind of a postmodern girl. I also think the plot twists here are not very surprising. I mean, one of the problems with this movie is that it's not surprising much.
I think there are some surprises, but yeah, we'll talk about this when we get to the
tropes, Dan. There's lots of familiar tropes. Yeah. But, the experience of it is one of the best movie-going experiences I've had, in a while. Where I felt like, oh, this is why we see things in theaters.
Right. The way I would put it is, it will not surprise me if this film racks up a fair number of technical Oscars next year. And it should, I would add, because, again, it is extremely good in terms of those areas.
I think the performances are quite good, too, but the story is so weak. Anyway.
Right. Well, you know what? Of stories, before we get to the weak story, let's get to the story behind the weak story. So, this is, I believe, the first film Gareth Edwards has made since Rogue One, and Rogue One came out like 7 years ago. So, what happened? Why did you do this?
Well, this has been a long time coming. It started production in 2019, actually.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yes. Mm-hmm.
So, but one of the most interesting things about it is that after he got the go-ahead, he and his producing partners decided that they were going to film the movie on location around the world. Mm-hmm. And they did a lot of location scouting. And they started in Asia, Vietnam, Cambodia.
Excuse me, that's New Asia to you. No, I'm sorry. But
they that's where they started. I actually don't know. Mm-hmm. It'd be interesting to ask. Why is that the place that you knew you wanted to film? It's cheap, I suppose. That's one way. But they figured that it would be cheaper to film on location it'd be cheaper to fly a film crew around the world than it would be to build the kind of sets that he envisioned, which when you think about what he wants to do.
Yeah. That's sense. Legit fascinating. But also, the way I would put it is, I can't believe he's the first one to, his vision is, as you say, it's not exactly derivative, but there are others who have similar kind of sci-fi visions. Yeah. And I'm kind of struck that he's the first one who thought, hey, what if we shoot this stuff on location and then add it afterwards, as opposed to creating the elaborate set and the green screen.
And I think everyone who's reviewed it, who's seen it, has pointed out how great the VFX are. And it's probably because they're not VFX. Yeah. I mean, they are, but there is so much real on the screen.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
That the VFX are easier to take. My God, the robots are amazing. They're
freaking incredible. I actually really did think that in some cases, and obviously in some cases we know they are, but there were lots of cases where I thought these have to be human beings looking like, they actually built something to make it look like robots. But
yeah.
It's amazing.
You can probably guess some of the influences to this film, Dan. Would you like to take a shot? Or should I just tell you the ones that are surprising? What do you want to do?
Tell me the ones that are surprising, because let's put it this way. We'll talk about this. Apocalypse Now has to be one of the obvious ones.
Yes. Blade Runner, obviously one.
Yeah, sure.
Here's one. Rain Man.
Would not have guessed that one.
I guess, I don't know. There's a buddy aspect.
I guess, but how do I put this? Alfie, which is the AI, is very, very different from the Dustin Hoffman character. I would actually
argue, not autistic.
No, I would argue that if anything, it is Joshua who is a little more on the spectrum than Alfie. Make that
E.T., not that surprising, but
no, that's fair.
You don't hear it referenced very often, I think. Right. And then Paper Moon, also kind of on the left field, but then once you hear it, I think father-daughter.
Yeah. Ryan O'Neal and Tatum O'Neal. That's actually, I kind of like that. Okay, that's good. Yeah.
Original casting, John David Washington, who I think is amazing. I think that, like I said, I think the acting is great. Gemma Chan. Originally, Danny McBride, who was replaced. Dan, do you know who played Drew? Was that person familiar to you?
He was, but I don't know, but I can't tell you why. I assume he's been a character actor who's been in other stuff, but maybe I'm wrong.
What's his name? Sturgill Sturgis?
I think so, yes.
Yeah,
yes.
The new wave country singer.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's him.
Holy crap, he was okay, now I'm actually legitimately impressed, because it's not that he was, it's not a standout role, but that was quality acting. Like he's holding his own on the screen with John David Washington.
And that role requires some reversals of character, reversals of motivation that have to be carried off pretty well, and he does it.
Subtle acting, and he actually does that. So that's actually legit impressive. Okay. Good.
And Benedict Wong, he was replaced by Ken Watanabe.
Okay, you have to say Benedict Wong was replaced by Ken.
Benedict Wong was replaced by Ken Watanabe.
Well, that'll be a seamless transition on it. That's good.
I think they should keep it.
Okay. All right. Fair enough.
I think people have realized that I cannot pronounce anything that has more than 4 syllables in it. More than 3, I should say.
Okay, all right.
More than 3 syllables, I have a really hard time. And then, of course, Allison Janney is in it. I love her. I think she's fantastic.
Yeah. I've
interviewed her. She is one of my favorite celebrity interviews of all time. She was just super nice and real. I can count on one hand the number of celebrities I've interviewed who seem like real people. She's one of them. And then Mark Menchaca, which is I only want to mention he plays McBride, the character McBride.
Okay.
A very inside Austin thing. In Austin, we have a street that's named that. The name is spelled that way. No, Menchaca.
Oh, okay. All right.
And
sure.
If you are from Austin, it's pronounced Manshack.
We're having a lot of Austin specific content.
Manshack. That is the name. That is and it's also Guadalupe. We have a Guadalupe street. Anyway,
Guadalupe I am familiar with. Yes.
All right. So they wanted to make a big movie with big set, not big sets, with big things, and want a classic Hollywood, right? So it's filmed on location. Yeah. Interestingly, it's shot on a consumer camera. A camera that's available.
Which you mean a camera that you or I could buy that we don't have to shell out tremendous amounts of money.
Well, it's still very expensive, but it's not one of the special fancy cameras that usually you'd film a blockbuster on. And that actually, I'll mention how much the movie costs in a second. They did it with a really small crew. Like I said, rather than build sets, they went around and waited for natural light and filmed in natural light. Filmed just when they could, basically. And how much does this movie cost, Dan? It costs $80 million.
Damn. That is not that expensive these days. And for a movie like this, that's rather astonishing.
Dune is twice as much.
Wow.
Yeah. And Dune didn't impressive. Dune has more star power, but still, that for what this looks like.
No, this does not look like a mid-budget picture is the way I would put it.
Yeah, and enough. I also think because I really thought the sound design was amazing and that the music was really good.
Well, it's Hans Zimmer, so that was great.
2 notes on that. One is that Edwards originally intended to have an AI write the music.
I have to say, one of the things we have to talk about is, it is hysterical that this is that one of the reasons why the writers have struck is because the role of AI is supposed to play in screenwriting, and yet it will, this might be the most pro AI film ever made, and might very well will be for all time.
Yeah, so he wanted to have AI generated music, and from what I gather, there was some produced, but then he changed his mind, and he actually had Hans Zimmer do it rather than in the style of Hans Zimmer.
That was a good decision by Gareth Edwards.
Because it's really good. It's really good. And one of the reasons it's good is they made the unusual choice to not have the score made until they were finished with the movie.
Which, again, by the way, is one of these things that strikes me as something you would want to do. I'm actually intrigued that this is considered counterintuitive. That's the way I would assume you'd want to do it. So I find that legitimately interesting.
Yeah. And then, Dan, we have a new segment.
Oh, we do? Okay.
We do.
Is it a sponsored segment?
It is. Dan, our news segment is brought to us by the official tourism board of Pennsylvania. A terrible place to visit, and you wouldn't want to live there.
That is a tagline. Well done. Okay, so
I consulted the official tourism board of Pennsylvania.
I believe this segment covers things that either participants in the film or the film itself have done that would render some people to want to exile the product to Pennsylvania.
Yes, it is. But often, I think we try to stay away from things that are truly set in Pennsylvania.
Right.
And we support some of that stuff, but this one has some kind of on the edge of Pennsylvania border.
Okay.
The official trailer, I found this fascinating, included real footage from the 2020 Beirut explosion.
Oh, the fireworks explosion on the port. Yeah.
And that was an accident.
Oh, dear.
But it got a lot of attention.
Well, that's bad. Okay.
And it is true. I shouldn't laugh, but they do use archival footage sometimes when putting together trailers. You eventually swap in something from the movie, but when you're making the trailer. And then I feel like everyone saw this coming. It has been critiqued for the practice of techno-orientalism, which I had not heard that term before, but as soon as I read it, I was like, I know what that is. And I think it is a genuine thing to be made aware of, which is like the use of Asian stereotypes in sci-fi. Probably started with Blade Runner, right? But it's a kind of a shorthand for like the loss of Western culture, probably, and like.
Well, I think it's the conflation of like like some sort of futurist aesthetics with, for lack of a better putting it, exotic, right? Oriental.
Right, but it's without paying attention to the culture itself. It's just using like Asianness as a code for, we no longer live in a Western-dominated world. We live in this world that is exotic and alien. So, yeah. Some of the specific criticisms, I don't know. Like,
let me put it this way.
I feel like that is a legitimate criticism. Like, I feel like that particular thing I kind of get. Now, I don't know if it's a canceling offense, but I understand. But I have a couple things. One is that what if a filmmaker wants to make something set in a far future, and nation states no longer exist the way they do,
right?
Like, you have to are you supposed to just make it all white people?
Yeah, this is one of the. Let me put it this way. I get the overall thrust of the criticism, but I also think you've got to point to specific things and say this is why this is bad. And there's a little bit in this film I can sort of, but also Edwards makes some conscious choices that one could see as sort of techno-orientalism, but I actually don't think that's what's going on. I think what he's trying to do is evoke a different kind of trope, Apocalypse Now, and so on and so forth. And so that I'm not sure it applies here, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, again, not being a person of that descent, I want to be careful. But for me, what I saw is some privileging of whiteness, or I should say Westernness, since one of the main characters is, of course, Black. But I did think that there were, Maya is, I think, a character, not a full character.
Yes. Yeah, we'll get to that as well. Yeah.
I think that you could say there should be more representation of the actual culture that has accepted AIs.
I would tend to agree with that, but we'll talk about that when we talk about the plot. I mean, this way, I'm not sure that's a flaw related to techno-orientalism as much as it's just a general flaw with the film.
Yeah, it's a general flaw with like most, Western filmmaking. But I think that in this particular film, I think it would have been helped.
I agree.
We had gotten more insight in like, I'm fascinated by the Buddhist robots. I want to know more.
We could talk, But I think ironically, this actually points to one of the dangers with doing that, though, which is that if you're wary, I am worried about directors who are like conscious of techno-orientalism and think, okay, we've got to ground this even more. But the more time you spend on this stuff, the more you put yourself at risk to some extent for these kinds of criticisms. So,
well, you can't make a movie, no one who's trying to do representation can be perfect in it.
Right. Yeah. That's what I'm trying to say.
I think one of the reasons that people don't risk it. And I think one of the things that we who live in the place where we can make those kinds of decisions to be representative, there has to be a willingness to like get something quote unquote wrong a little, like to make a choice like, all right, some of people are not going to like this. And I can't do it perfectly, but because I feel strongly like the representation in general, and I'm going to try to do the best I can. And I think that, and I do think this particular movie would have done better, would have not done better, but would better serve its aims if it had more characters who were in the culture. That was living alongside AIs. All right, enough of that, Dan. We can move on. Shut the door in Pennsylvania.
All right, let's go to let's go from Pennsylvania to Russia. So we have to go to Chekhov's What's It. This is the thing that often appears in the first act of a film that winds up being somewhat trenchant in the third act of the film. Anna, what do you have?
Cheating. Chekhov's Maya. I mean, I guess.
Yeah, no. It's not the. Yes, we will talk about that Maya played by Gemma Chan, a character who really does disappear after the first 30 minutes and reappears later. Related to that, I have Chekhov's 30 seconds, which is the idea.
Although I think that's a full cortical stack for Maya.
Yeah, fair enough. But really, yes. Let's. You know what?
Yeah.
We'll get to the plot.
Let's do the plot so people know what I meant by cortical stack. But of course, you should have seen this by now. So
yes. So you know what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Act 1, our very own Butlerian jihad. In the year 2055...
Dan, one thing.
Yes?
Whenever I hear the Butlerian jihad, I always think of Judith Butler.
Did you go to grad school, Anna? Did you go to grad school in English?
I did go to grad school. I did.
I was not aware that you went to grad school in English. Yes.
Oh, American Studies, which is worse.
American Studies. I thought.
Yeah, the Judith Butler and jihad.
Okay.
One could say we're undergoing that right now, actually.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
In the year 2055, a rogue AI, ostensibly tasked to defend the U.S., instead sets off a nuclear device in Los Angeles, killing only 1 million people, so it's a tactical nuke, I guess. I'm sorry. This is actually like where I started having problems, because if you were to actually explode a nuclear device in the heart of Los Angeles, you'd kill way more than 1 million people unless it's a tactical nuke.
It was like a dirty bomb, I guess. I don't know.
No,
it wasn't, because there's a huge crater.
No,
but
well, that could still be a dirty, but they say it's a nuclear device. It was just a very puzzling decision to make.
Nuclear device. It's very small.
Anywho.
Bitty.
A decade later, AI has been banned in the West but supported in the East. So the U.S. has declared war on the country of New Asia. We'll get to that in a bit.
Yeah.
To eliminate...
Perhaps they might not call it... Just to be very clear, that's a weird name for a country to call itself.
Oh, yes. Absolutely. Particularly...
If people don't realize, that's the problem. The problem is that.
Yeah. Anyway, they declare war on New Asia to eliminate all AI from the world. Our protagonist, Joshua Taylor, is living in Konang, New Asia, with his pregnant wife, Maya, and is, quite possibly, Anna, the world's worst deep cover agent ever. Okay? There is a U.S. raid that is launched on their home.
Austin Powers and Joshua Taylor.
Right. During which... Joshua says very loudly into a microphone, "I'm deep cover. What are you doing?" Even though Maya does not know that he's an agent. Okay. So Maya finds out the truth about her husband at minute 5 of the film. She and Joshua are separated in the attack. He is evacuated while she seemingly dies in an attack from Nomad, the West's orbital missile platform.
The West's coolest orbital platform ever.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty dope.
I gotta say, again, I was stunned when he said, "I'm deep cover" very loudly. And that might have, brought me out of the film initially. It was
pretty funny. She's upstairs. Anyway. She's upstairs.
Yeah.
And he's like, I'm in deep cover.
You know I'm in deep cover. Cover.
Yeah.
Okay. One thing about their house, by the way, I did love how many books there were. That was just
I thought, the set design in general is amazing. Yeah. So...
But I like their little house.
Yeah.
Anyway, 5 years later, Colonel Howell and General Andrews inform Joshua that Maya is not dead. He agrees to go with them on a mission to find the AI leader Nimrata and destroy what U.S. Intel says is their ultimate weapon, something called Alpha O. This leads to a pretty harrowing incursion in a New Asia village, in which Joshua conveniently becomes the only team member to see the weapon, a 6-year-old simulant girl, in other words, a growing AI. A counterattack by New Asia forces knocks Joshua out, but the AI saves him. He calls the AI Alfie and soon realizes that she has the power to command machines close to her. Surrounded by New Asia forces, Joshua takes his wounded comrade Shipley and Alfie and heads out to find his friend Drew in a nearby city to aid in the search for Maya. Anna, we've already started talking about the issues we had with this film, but I worry our listeners are thinking we didn't like it. I actually did like it. We should talk about the really good stuff. The special effects, the set design, as you say, outstanding. The way I would put it is this truly feels like a lived-in world. It has the grit. It has, the sort of just nice touches that you don't necessarily see in a lot of stuff with green screens. And in particular, the simulants and the robots are incredibly well rendered.
Yes, speaking of well done, I have to make a correction, which is I knew this was wrong, but the guy's name is Sturgill Simpson, not Sturgis. Sturgis is a place where they have motorcycle rallies, which I on my head for some reason. So Discordians, I corrected myself.
There we go. You don't have to.
Do people know I'm bad with names, Dan?
Watanabe.
No.
Watanabe.
Watanabe.
There we go.
I said it. See, when I'm not thinking about it. Also, Dan, last week, the name of the movie I was in was Downsizing. Shrinking is a different show.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Oh, you're right. That was the Apple Plus show. Oh, God.
Yeah.
I forgot about that.
So
okay,
both of us forgot the name of the movie.
Yep. Not good. Not good.
Anyway, back to this movie. Gorgeous, 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 gorgeous. Just, it takes you away. And it's gorgeous also, when I say gorgeous, I mean, some of it is beautiful, but also this lived-in sci-fi thing, which is somehow still kind of original, although we've talked about and seen and loved other lived-in sci-fi, including Star Wars, including Alien. This somehow seems slightly different and enveloping. It's
actually what I was trying to think. Like another one that this reminded me of was Minority Report, and it's the same sort of thing where like, and frankly, not a lot of sci-fi films pull this off, but this is on that level where it's just a world that you kind of wanted to see more of. Even I don't know if they're going to make a sequel. It would be hard to make a sequel.
They are not.
Yeah, which is a shame. But like, you remember we were talking about Prospect and like those directors want to do something in the Prospect verse, as it were.
Yeah.
I wish someone would do something in this verse. It would, because again, stuff was gorgeous.
What? The set design kind of reminded me of Prospect.
Yeah, a little bit.
In that it is a different kind of lived-in sci-fi. It's a naturalistic lived-in sci-fi.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So for all the talk about this film being derivative, I think that's the area where it really is legitimately.
And I would say the fact that it's derivative, some of it I thought was awesome. The Apocalypse Now scene to Radiohead was fantastic. I laughed out loud. Radiohead, Dan, get it? It's Radiohead.
Okay.
I mean, maybe they didn't mean that joke, but I did laugh out loud. Okay, computer, Radiohead, Dan.
Okay.
Was there anything you particularly liked? Again, since we'll do some of this in debris field, but I'm curious if there's any particular parts of the set design or music or whatever.
The music really did, like, there were just, it was the right amount of music properly done. Also, I was going to bring this up. The opening montage kind of blew me away. Like the role, what they were showing during the credits, where it was almost like a 50s reel of like artificial intelligence. Again, I'd never seen anything like that, but like, because it felt like this, like, movie tone movie they would like, newsreel they would show before a film, but it's about all the stuff that it's AI. So, again, and also I think what impressed me was the degree to which they managed to do both rural and urban settings, and they both felt perfectly lived in.
Yeah, I thought the rural settings were particularly stunning. I thought the monasteries, especially the main monastery, the middle section, Act 3, I guess. And then, seeing like the rice paddies with like these enormous machines coming through, which is, like, I don't know, a warning for metaphor for the movie, I guess. But still, like, quite good. All right, Dan, you want to continue?
Yeah, let's get to Act 2, Mr. and Mrs. Smith.ai. Joshua's car dies around the same time as his comrade Shipley. Taylor and Alfie hitch a ride to the city. They are being pursued both by New Asia forces and by Colonel Howell, who uses an interesting resurrection device to extract Shipley's last memories to find out what the sitch is, in which, basically does something like downloads the brain,
which seems like kind of big deal technology to me.
Yeah, and but because he's been dead for so long, they can only like have 30 seconds of life yet. And that, by the way, that whole scene was actually really well done, and I again, like, something that seemed unique is the way I would put it. Anyway, Joshua finds his friend Drew, who used to be his handler but went native and is living with a simulant named Cammy. Drew tells Joshua that there's no way Maya survived the attack, and that the reason the attack happened is because Intel learned that Maya was actually Nimrata after her father died. Meanwhile, New Asia forces close in on Alfie's location and raid Cammy and Drew's place. Cammy is killed by New Asia police forces, while Joshua and Alfie are eventually captured by those same forces, with Howell and her Lieutenant McBride in close pursuit. Alfie and Taylor continue into the darkness of New Asia. Get it, Anna? Do you get it? Get it? And escape downriver.
They go downriver.
They go downriver. They go downriver. You see where I'm going with this? Yeah. They eventually reconnect with AI soldier Haroon, who knew Taylor from when he was undercover. And Haroon tells Taylor that the nuclear strike on LA was due to a human coding error, and that if the AI wins, they don't plan to seek retribution from the West. They'll just let things be.
You can't wait for the IR in this, Dan.
Oh, yeah. Yep. Haroon also tells Taylor that Maya designed Alfie using a copy of their embryonic child. She apparently did this while pregnant with Taylor's child. Anna, the Maya-Taylor relationship kind of had a bunch of secrets. I mean, I'm not kidding with the Mr. and Mrs. Smith analogy. Like, both of them got into this, like, planning on doing other stuff. And I do want to add my frustration here. I don't know if this is so much techno-orientalism, but, like, this is the second film we have discussed after Don't Worry, Darling, where it seems like they could have used Gemma Chan a lot more effectively and also a lot more. Like, it was actually frustrating how little she was in this film. There's another actress, Veronica No, I think, who plays Cammy, who I actually feel we got a better sense of her character than of Maya's.
I thought the whole interlude with Drew and Cammy was really good.
Yeah.
You know, props to Sturgill Simpson getting his name right there. I just haven't seen him very much. It's just the listening. So anyway, which doesn't explain why I get his name wrong. But moving on. Yeah, there's some Apocalypse Now references in this movie. Just
a little bit.
Interesting choice that I have more questions about for later. And I would say the hand waving goes to Hurricane Category 3 in this section.
Oh, yeah. The middle, actually, the last 2/3 of this film.
It goes up. It goes to Category 4.
The hand waving gets even more. Yeah.
In act, as the acts go, the hand waving gets more. But the coding error, I mean, what the fuck? Like, it's...
Yeah. That seemed you know what that actually seemed?
Millions and millions of people have died. It's a coding error?
Yeah. We'll get to that when we talk about the IR in this film.
Okay.
I promise.
And then I want to point out that Joshua's friends die pretty quick. Like, don't be a friend of Joshua's.
That's true. It's a fair point.
Everyone who befriends him, winds up exiting, stage left, like, pretty quick. And then Allison Janney, I might say her name a lot because not only is she the coolest person I've interviewed, or one of the coolest, she's so good.
Yes. The way I would put it is she has a small brief scene in the beginning on the helicopter going into New Asia with Joshua that, like, she has maybe a minute of dialogue that sort of sets her backstory. And it's absolutely crucial to the film, and she sells it to the point where she does some really bad things subsequently in the film, but you're willing to forgive her a lot, not just because she's Allison Janney, but because she's explained where she's coming from. And it's just incredibly well rendered. Well,
it takes her from being just like boo hissed when she comes on screen to actually also making, like, what is she going to do? There's in a way, like, because she's a layered character, we don't think of her as just being, like, always going to, she does a lot of bad things, but, like, we're interested in what she's doing.
Right. And there are times where, like, you're not sure what she's going to do. And so, like, again, this is a credit to Janney's acting because, that's... Yeah. All right, let's get to Act 3, Apocalypse pretty soon. I'm glad you appreciate this, huh? The U.S. Army attacks the village using massive floating tanks and smaller robot-propelled explosives. And by the way, this was for me, even considering the 30-second resurrection, those robot exploding devices were easily the creepiest part of the film for me. Like, I don't know why.
The ones that look like garbage cans?
Yeah, the ones that look like garbage cans saying it was a pleasure to serve you and then running out. I don't know why that freaked me out. It was just...
The pleasure to serve you part, that I thought was suitably creepy. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. It was amazing. Alfie manages to stop some of those little explosive robots, but is then shot by McBride, who is in turn shot by Taylor. Haroon and the remaining AI forces take Taylor and Alfie to a secret redoubt where Maya is. There we learn that Maya is only technically alive. She's been on life support and hasn't regained consciousness since the raid from 5 years ago. The AIs can't pull the plug because hand waves. Asimov's laws of robotics. I don't
know. It's jazz hands and hand waving. Okay, Dan, they're in a war.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, I thought I might go on. I thought I might have a rant, but instead, I am just open-mouthed.
I think the explanation is because she's Nimrata, they can't do it. But like, again, that doesn't really, it's bad. It's not a good explanation.
They could have said because they're monks or something. Because it's in a temple. Actually, again, one of my favorite set pieces in the whole movie is this temple they have in the mountains. They could have said a lot of different things about why they can't pull the plug. But to go with because of a thing we haven't referenced before.
It's not in our programming. We can't do that. We can't harm life. What are you talking about? Anyway.
All this shooting that we've... Okay.
Basically, Haroon asked Taylor if he can do this instead. So Taylor downloads all of Maya's memories onto a cortical stack, which is a term we're borrowing from Altered Carbon, but I think there's no other way we can describe it, and then pulls the plug. Which, again, this is one of these technologies that I don't think they, like, really fully thought through the implications of.
Well, exactly. Like what that would do for AI to be able to put another person's personality in there.
Right.
Like, anyway, I'll just sigh deeply and let you move on.
Howell and the Americans arrive, and there's a shootout during which Haroon is injured in the form of a hole in his torso, but nonetheless manages to kill Howell.
Dan, how much damage can these robots sustain? That is another question that I have.
There are many questions, Anna, and I wish I had the answers. Yeah.
He's fine with the hole blown through him. And we also don't understand what it means for robots to die. And if humans can download a cortical stack, well then surely
the AI can do the same thing. Yes. I agree.
All right. I should wait. I should not interrupt. I should just wait.
No, it's entirely valid.
The movie was very frustrating in this way.
The point is, Howell and the other Americans die, and Joshua and Alfie are captured. Nomad raises the site to the ground. And now let's get to the fundamental, one of the fundamental problems I had with this film, which is there is stacking the deck, and there is stacking the deck, Anna. I mean, from the very first village incursion, in which a U.S. soldier threatens to kill a puppy unless, the humans reveal where the AI are, to the AI, as you say, not being responsible for the LA nuke, to them not being able to pull the plug on Maya. I have never seen a film like this in which it is very clear the Americans are the baddies. Like, so bad. Like, I've seen Oliver Stone Vietnam films with more nuance in their portrayals of U.S. soldiers than this film.
Yeah, there's Russian propaganda.
Did Vladimir Putin sponsor this film? That's what I'm asking.
Did Vladimir Putin's AI make this movie?
There we go. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, the puppy thing is straight out of like Platoon, although Oliver Stone he went ahead and used actual people, but it is a puppy. Although since you've already seen it, because
it is not actually
fine. And then the other dog is also
no dogs. No dogs were killed during the filming of this.
There are two dogs put in danger in this film, and they both turn out fine. So that's good. But I mean, all of the village incursion things are straight out of Oliver Stone, like straight out of Apocalypse Now, Oliver Stone. And and again, I guess we'll talk about this more. It's to me, it's a little weird. Like,
I think the thing that was frustrating, and this is why I appreciated Allison Janney's performance.
But why are we? Why are we fighting this war, as it were?
Right, exactly. I mean, maybe it's because you're assuming that by telling everyone that a nuke destroyed Los Angeles, they're automatically going to be sympathetic with the American position. But there is not a drop of subtlety in making it clear that you should be siding with or sympathizing with New Asia. So it's very. There's no debate in this film. There's no there's no plausible argument for why the U.S. wants to bar all AI. And so, I mean, within there just isn't.
And you could have made one. I mean, you could have.
Right. It wouldn't have been hard.
You could have made a capitalist one. You could have been we want to enslave the AI. We want the AI to just work for us and to work for free. And
right.
I thought they were going to go for a war on terror thing, and that does seem to be what they do at first. But weirdly, the war on terror has been portrayed with more subtlety.
Yes, this is what I'm trying to say. Again, I'm not trying to say, hey, why didn't they make it clear that the U.S. was the good guys in this film? That's not what I want. That's not what I want. But what I do want is if you're going to justify this kind of carnage, you want to know what, you at least want a semi-plausible story. And again, outside of Allison Janney's performance, this just isn't done in the film. And that's a big problem.
The Marines in it seem like monsters. Just straight up monsters. And again, they're the monsters, Dan. They're the ones without human feeling. It's their programming. Okay.
All right, let's close the plot off so we can talk more about the flaws. Let's close with Act 4, Mad About No Bad. Back in the States, General Andrews informs Taylor that Alfie will not let the military kill her and demands to see Taylor. The general asks Joshua to use an EMP gun to kill Alfie and furthermore to persuade Alfie to accept death. This appears to work as Taylor whispers something to Alfie, fires the gun, and she seems to die. Psych! This goes into standby mode. They escape, head to LAX, and board a shuttle to the moon. Taylor has Alfie take over the shuttle and have it land on Nomad. Taylor then takes out the guards, and Alfie makes her way to the command center to stop the final missile attacks on the remaining New Asia bases. Joshua goes on a spacewalk to put a bomb onto one of the Nomad missiles. Alfie and Taylor head back to the shuttle separately and are prevented from reuniting. Alfie finds lots of dormant AIs, including a copy of Maya, who she drags out and implants with the human Maya's memories. Alfie gets into an escape pod just before the bomb goes off. Joshua can't get into it and so launches the pod so at least Alfie will live. As Nomad explodes, Joshua gets his 30 seconds with the simulant version of Maya. Meanwhile, Alfie lands back in New Asia with the remaining bases intact and Nomad destroyed, suggesting the tide might turn in the war. Okay, Anna, I think the degree to which you think this film is great as opposed to flawed but good hinges crucially on what you think about the film's depiction of AI. And to be honest, I wasn't crazy about it. Physically, the effects are amazing. Like the sort of robots that you see, the simulants you see. The robots are the ones that are obviously AI. The simulants have sort of human faces, but it's clear that they're AI because you can see the machine part of their heads. But the whole point of AI is to have machines do things better than what humans do. And that's not how the AI is depicted here. Instead, they seem just as emotional and as distracted as humans. I mean, you see them sleeping. I think we see them drinking. We see them doing a lot of weird shit. They are somewhat less bereft of vengeance and slightly less bloodthirsty. So better humans, but like otherwise they're humans. Am I wrong? Like it just like a bizarre rendition.
Slightly better version of humans, but not because they don't need to eat, don't need to sleep,
right?
Have perfect logic. Yeah. The things that we like to think that, androids
presumably would be an AI strong suit. Yes.
Yeah. When we think about the AIs that might take over the world, right?
Yeah.
Number one, a humanoid is not the best option, right? I mean, we make androids humanoid for our purposes, really. Like, that's not always the best shape for something.
Right.
And then, the drinking and the sleeping really bothered me. Like, not because the drinking, like, fine. I mean, and I also understand pleasure seeking for an AI. Like, I understand making something pleasurable for an AI, like an AI to have some desire to want to have fun or to want to feel good, which is why presumably they fall in love, right?
Yeah.
But specifically eating, drinking, and sleeping, those seem weird to me.
Yeah.
Where does the food go? Where does the food go? It's just like, it's a question anyone who's had a dolly in their life, is it, what happens?
I think there's a shot that perfectly encapsulates how I feel about this film, which was there was like a hammock, like a suspended, and you see a robot sleeping in it. And it was simultaneously a really cool image, and yet the more you thought about it, the less it made any sense. And so, that's the frustrating thing about this film.
Especially in that particular scene, they're supposed to be guarding Alfie.
Right! Which, again, these are the worst... Taylor might be the worst deep cover agent, but these are the worst AI ever. No wonder they are losing this war. That's all I can say.
They have this child that they think of as almost a deity and that they need to protect. And so they all have a party
and then clock out and are distracted or whatever. So basically they anthropomorphize the AI way too much, and it's a problem.
To the point of they're teddy bears. And that is my question, is that what message is Edwards trying to send here? Do you think?
I honest to God don't know. I mean, I'm assuming I don't know because I don't know what
besides
the AI is a
stand-in for. But are you being pro AI if you take away all of the things that are threatening and true about AI?
It's not even you could talk about AI being, useful, but the problem is that I don't even think he understands why it's useful. The most utopian vision of AI is not what you see in this film. What you see is AIs acting like human beings, acting like organics.
what you see is, I feel like he's just trying to, like, he's gotten too wrapped up in his own metaphor.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
Like, he makes them so human that it's a message more about, like, I thought we were going to get a big anti-terrorism, or not anti-terrorism.
I mean, you could argue
I thought we were going to get a big, like, anti-war on terror.
Yeah,
like,
well, I mean, this film in many ways is that. I mean, that criticism is shot throughout the film, but that's kind of, I don't know if that gets us anywhere.
But it's not complicated because the AIs are like such good people.
They're so good. They literally can't kill Maya. They can't, like, you know, they
although they keep shooting at the whatever. There's several firefights in this movie.
Yes.
Where AIs are shooting at Americans.
Right.
Americans,
totally willing to kill them. Which, you know, and again, given it's a war, that's what happens. But, you know, just, it's very strange.
Yeah. Oh, and also I wanted to say, to make Maya alive for only 30 seconds seems very cruel to me.
Well, okay, to be fair, like, I assume the rule is that if they weren't on the exploding Nomad, she would have, like, been a simulant and gone on. But, like, you know, it was just... Right, yeah, but still.
But they're on the exploding Nomads. So
it's very, as I said.
Hi, again, awake. Hope you had a good nap. Gonna be awake for another... You're gonna die in 30 seconds.
I am very frustrated because, like, ever since Crazy Rich Asians, I've been entranced by Gemma Chan as a good performer. But, like, the one movie in which she was the lead is the awful Marvel one.
Oh, Eternals,
yes.
Yeah, that's one of the that's a bad one.
Might be the worst one. Yeah. And, like, beyond that, she's been in interesting films, but again, this is, like, yet another performance where I just wanted to see more of Gemma Chan because I think she's a great actress, but she's, you know, there's not enough of her in this.
They needed more characters to be on the side of AI in a way, like,
right.
Because we also don't understand why it is that a culture would incorporate AI gladly.
Right, and this was also frustrating. Like, we
and how that culture might be different.
Right, and, like, visually we see, like, the AI and the simulants and the humans in New Asia interacting, but we don't see. It's literally just a surface portrait. We don't understand how their society works, which it could have been difficult because already this is a film that I think was probably about 15, 20 minutes too long. But, like, I wanted to know more about how New Asia worked, and we don't get it.
You know, this brings us to a question, Dan.
Oh, really? What is it, Anna?
Yeah. Is there IR in this movie?
Would you like to play a game, Anna? I call this game, make Dan try to explain the IR in this film and fail gloriously. Because, there's definitely some IR in this film, but man, a lot of it is inchoate. Okay, so let's start with the U.S. side. Things are uneven there. So would a military, or would, the U.S. military rely on AI as a source of defense? Sure, absolutely possible. One could imagine that. Particularly in terms of, like, detecting threats, that certainly makes sense. That's one of the things that AIs would do. Could Los Angeles have been nuked due to a coding error in an AI? No. I call bullshit on this. It's not because human coding errors are impossible, but because humans would very much insist on maximizing what those who study nuclear weapons like to call negative control, i.e. making sure that absolutely no one but the president of the United States could launch a nuke. And that's important.
I feel like that explanation can only be made by someone who neither knows much about nuclear war or coding.
You mean the argument that it was just a coding error?
Yeah, just coding error. They don't know how nukes work, and they don't know how coding works.
Yes, I think that's a safe statement. So like that, the whole premise that sets off this film doesn't quite work for me. By the way, I like the interpretation that Haroon was just lying. I think we should consider that possibility. That would be interesting.
I was hoping that was going to be the case, actually. Yeah. Like, not, I mean, hoping, I meant, I was like, this certainly, what I guess like I thought was, this can't be that stupid. Yeah. It can't be that dumb.
Okay. So, now that said, with that objection, would the U.S. have responded with a global war on AI in response to an LA nuke strike? Sure, absolutely. Tracks with the response of 9/11. Perfectly fair. And would the U.S. simultaneously have wanted to have a strategic AI reserve, which is what we discover on Nomad? Yes, totally believable. That was fine. Had no problem with that. It's when we flip to New Asia that things really start to fall apart. So first of all, this whole New Asia concept. So
just every time we say it, I laugh a little bit.
I mean, this film is only set, 40 years in the future, basically. I'm not entirely sure what to do with this new state. The idea that kingdoms in Southeast Asia that have been independent for quite some time are suddenly going to agree to band together. It is a massive hand wave. It's just, it's a very weird...
They seem to be in Nepal at one point, I think.
I thought it was Thailand most of the time.
Thailand,
yeah. It's a very weird hand wave to make in a film that is only set 40 years in the future.
Yeah.
Because otherwise this film would be what I would call hard sci-fi. I mean, it's like The Expanse in that way.
Yeah.
But that just didn't make it. It's just not credible. I'm sorry. And that's weird. And as I said, I don't entirely understand the human/AI/simulant/chimpanzee utopia that is New Asia. And I bring up chimpanzee because there is a scene in which apparently the chimpanzee can set off a bomb and decides to do so. Like the chimpanzee has agency, Anna. I'm not quite sure what the hell that was.
It made me wonder about the dog that saved them earlier.
Yeah. I want to know, do they have little AI things?
Do we have a terraformer crossover
I don't
here?
Know. That's a fair question. It's just bizarre. I think it would have made more sense if you at least saw how the humans benefit from the AI. And that shouldn't have been that hard. That I think could have done. And I think
I also wondered if the chimpanzee was an AI.
It's possible. Yeah. And then finally, can we talk about the AI grand strategy for a second? Because it makes no fucking sense whatsoever. So, first of all, if what Haroon says is correct, they're going to win the war and yet not do anything when they win the war. It's like, okay, we won, you're destroyed, we're just going to let you go about your business. That's not how wars work.
It's not how Americans work. But
it's not that is not how any war works when someone wins, okay? There's going to be a treaty you have to sign. Yeah.
Is there and good losers too? Losers who are
you can be a gracious winner. Being a gracious winner is important. Think about the end of World War II or something like that. But you still have to actually set the terms.
Yeah, sorry, that's what I mean. So if we had done it, if we had been with Germany, we're like, all right, we beat you fair and square, and now we're done. Bye.
I mean, actually, that's a little bit of what happened in Iraq. So how that works.
That's true.
You know how well that worked. But also, by the way, even besides that, the grand strategy for the AI war is we're going to put all our chits into a being that will take a generation to develop the necessary mastery to rule all machines. Just seems to me it's like investing in some cheap hacking would have been much better. Literally, the one thing we know about this character, about Alfie, is that it's going to take her some time to figure all this shit out. Generally speaking, when you fight wars, you don't do something where you're thinking, yeah, we're still going to be fighting this war 20 years from now. It just doesn't make any sense.
What I thought, and a thing that the movie did not explore, there's a lot of things that the movie doesn't even gesture at. It's just they're brought up in the movie, and that a semi-intelligent viewer is going to be like, I wonder what they're going to do with that. And then they do
because it's legitimately interesting stuff, and yet just unfinished. Yes.
The thing about Alfie, if she has control over all machines, she would have control over the AIs. So it is a little bit like inventing having a nuclear weapon, in which case they could destroy you. Right? You have a weapon that is so powerful.
Right.
That and this one's an AI. Should it want to? Should it desire to go beyond the programming that you've given it?
True. Yes, that's an excellent point. In other words, you're not just creating a nuclear bomb on it. You're creating a sentient nuclear bomb.
Yeah.
Which is just scary as fuck.
Seems scary and would be an interesting wrinkle in this story if what the thing that could happen is that this all-powerful deity, you're making this child literally a god.
Yep.
And what if she decides I don't like you anymore? Then there's that we have several different sci-fi stories about children with all who are powerful and get their adults. It's that Twilight Zone episode that everyone talks about, the kid who makes the adults behave in a certain way because he can disappear them if they don't.
Oh, right.
Something on something street, I think. Anyway.
Yeah.
We can move on.
Let's move on. And you know what? I have a question for you, Anna.
What is it, Dan?
Is there a critique of capitalism in this film?
Dan, come on, get on board. Get on board with critiquing capitalism. It'll be fun. Like cartoons. It'll be fun. A game. Come on, it's hella fun. Dan, why don't you want to critique capitalism? Is it because this movie is weirdly agnostic about capitalism? Even though it engages in paint-by-numbers liberal left politics.
Mm-hmm.
Imperialism is bad, racism is bad, war is bad.
Yes, I think those are some lessons we've drawn. Yeah, sure. Okay.
I think it's a missed opportunity because the idea of this AI-centric society with AIs being woven in, I think would be theoretically could be post-scarcity, right? Like you have this like unending supply of labor.
Right.
Like what are the union, rules for AIs? Like why are they working? What are they getting out of this? Are they getting paid? Are they getting energy? Do they believe in capitalism? Like, are they paying each other money? How is money working? Where is it coming from? Can't
I
they
just
live
assumed
forever?
It's crypto. It's crypto AI. It's AI, yeah.
And
it's
like,
AI Dogecoin.
What motivates them if they do believe in capitalism? What is the definition of AI rich? And what would be the point of being rich if you were an AI? Because I think we humans, we like to do nothing. We like to be rich so we don't have to work. And we like to be rich to have stuff, right? So what would that mean for an AI? And what would leisure look like for an AI? If an AI got wealthy enough to not have to work.
Do you know what all this is wanting me to do, Anna? I think we need to add, at some point in the future, we need to do Spielberg's AI. Because actually,
I hate that movie so much.
Oh, really? Okay. Oh, that's interesting.
But we can do it. We can do it.
That film has answers to your questions, is all I'm saying. Like, just pointing that out.
This is true, but I just didn't like it. I hated it. I just felt like, I don't know. I'm not a big Haley Joel Osment fan, I guess. Like, I find him, speaking of child actors, actually, maybe I'll say now, I am a child actor that I was not annoyed by. I thought she was amazing.
Yes. The actress is Madeline Una Voiles, I believe is her name, who plays
Fantastic.
Alfie. She is extremely good.
Knocks it out of the park. There. I mean, we haven't talked about this yet, and maybe we should move on to the debris field because, wait.
Oh.
I said it, and all of a sudden, it is. We're in the debris field.
Nomad. Oh, shit. Okay.
I made it so by saying it.
Yep.
A thing that we haven't discussed is the acting, and I think that John David Washington and Madeline Una Voiles, I think they're amazing. I think they're so good. I was emotionally affected at the end of the movie. It didn't deserve it. Like, except for the acting, right? Like, and also there was a guy near me that was choking up. And I think that's a testament to the acting.
Yeah.
I mean, when you have an adorable child that you have come to feel for, and then like an actor who also has had a very credible change of,
a credible character arc, as it were. Yeah.
Incredible character art. How can you not be invested? And he sacrifices himself. Like, even
though, frankly, the final 20 minutes made not a ton of sense.
No sense. I didn't understand. And also, a lot of people are going to die on Nomad. Like,
no, they all got into the escape pods, Anna. They're fine. It's like Cobra. When G.I. Joe destroys something, they all just got into the escape pods. No lives were lost during the destruction of Nomad.
Yeah, I think the acting in general was first rate. When there was a character to play, when the movie gave enough of a character, everyone nailed it. I even thought McBride, who was an evil person, was well done. Yeah. And then again, Gil Simpson.
Yes.
Very, very good.
Okay, while we're talking about Nomad, you liked it, and I did like the idea of Nomad, but the truth is that, again, this is another one where the science made no sense, because that thing That thing is not in low orbit. That thing is like maybe 10,000 feet above, the Earth. And so like the idea that somehow is like this low orbital thing, I'm sorry. It didn't make any sense to me.
I know. Of all the,
I know.
Nitpick about a lot, but like some of this, like I'll say that it's weird that the robots eat, but for some reason like that, I'm like,
On the other hand,
whatever.
I did love like the
aerodynamics,
the laser show. The light
that was really cool.
That was a ridiculously cool effect. I loved that. That was great. That was interesting. So yeah. What else do you have, Anna?
We did not mention this because it doesn't make a difference, and it's another thing that could have been cool, which is that Joshua has prosthetics.
Yes. Well, I think part of this is because it goes completely unremarked on in the film.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I don't mind that. And I'm also a little interested what the disability community might have to say about this. Probably not good things. But although it's also fine from a representation standpoint, again, to just have it not be remarked on.
Right.
Yeah. But if you're making a movie about how technology aids humans.
Right.
And the ways that humans want to rely on it and may resent it. I think there's an opportunity there.
I'm just going to say again, to me, it felt like more deck stacking, I guess would be the way to put it. But yeah, I agree with that. Okay, again, another example of the great design. I loved when we see like those huge like floating tanks that the U.S. Army has. Did you notice the sans serif font of U.S. Army? Like the font of the U.S. Army. It was like...
Did you just say serif?
Sans serif. That's the font, right? Like the...
Serif? I guess I've never heard it pronounced in French.
S-E-R-I-F.
I just say sans serif.
Oh, sans serif? Okay. I guess sans serif. Yeah.
Sans serif. I'm going to say it like
I'm sorry. Sans is also with... Sans is without. Well, sans means without in French.
Yeah, so that's what... And that is what...
Yeah.
Yes.
So I said sans serif. I'm sorry. The sans serif font, serif font, whatever. Like the point is, I don't know why it looked really good. It was really it worked well. Yeah.
All the machinery, everything.
Yeah.
Yes. I did not particularly love the weird title card thing that they did.
It was that was a little odd. Also, there was like the thing talking about Nimrata in the left corner that I couldn't figure out why they did that. It was
like owned by Nimrata. There was this weird thing like it implied that the film itself was an artifact of the universe,
which was strange.
Looking at, but it's clearly not.
I guess the thing you could argue is that maybe it was kind of like the way Orwell did 1984, where the implication is that like it's a novel written after the fall of the regime.
Yeah, that's what I mean. But yet there's no other indication that that's the case.
Yeah, I agree. That's an issue. Yeah,
weird.
Yeah. I did like, as much as I've knocked the IR, I did like in the very opening scene where like you see the general addressing the joint session of Congress, when the general says, "We're not at war with the people of New Asia." That's a good line. That someone actually paid attention to political discourse. That was a great line. Well done.
Yeah. I will go back to say I thought the temples were beautiful, and I like so many weird missed opportunities. This universe, like I wish that we had just more of this universe. Basically.
Right, exactly. We're on the same page there.
I don't even necessarily want Gareth Edwards to do it. Like you were saying, not the Prospect guys want to make a Prospect universe story. Yeah. But I completely buy that robots would become Buddhists. That just tracks for me. I still want to know more about it.
Right. Totally fair. Yes.
I want to know a little bit more about their beliefs. And actually it made me think of names I can't names. Desmerel in Foundation.
Demerzel in Foundation. Yeah.
And how she has a religious faith.
True.
They don't do anything with that at all in season 2. I thought they did interesting stuff with it in season 1, but I would. Yeah. Anyway, more missed opportunities. I think that's about it for me on Debris Field. Dan, do you have anything else?
Well, you had pointed out, Anna, when I suggested this, and you have been very persistent on this point, that this film is not well titled. That the title is The Creator. It's a generic title, and I sort of understand a little bit why they did it. But I feel about this title the same way I always feel about Soderbergh's Out of Sight, which is the most generic title for a really interesting movie. What would you want the title of this film to be?
God, the thing is, I suggested that we come up with names, and I'm sort of blanking. I mean, like, what would be a good title? You could go with something like kind of a little bit generic and evocative that would be better. And I'm trying to think it would something like childhood, or I guess I would give it away.
My title is Stand By.
That's not bad. Yeah. That's not bad. But I'm trying to think of like some of the themes that come up, and we don't have to spend too much time on this. But
you know what? Actually, a good title would have been Nomad, because in some ways that would have had a double meaning, and I think actually would have worked for this. And also, given the Apocalypse Now and like Heart of Darkness sort of thing, I think it would have been good. Yeah,
Heart of Darkness would have been an interesting name too.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, Taken, but like
yeah.
Anyway, so I think that's it.
I believe so.
I guess we've talked a lot about this movie, a little more than we usually talk about movies, because it just misses it. It just
but just misses it. Like there's a lot that is really good in this film, which I think makes it that much more frustrating that there are obvious flaws that could have been fixed or needed to be fixed. And so the thing I will compliment the film on is that it's good enough to provoke a really interesting conversation, but also the film is bad enough so that we get frustrated at easy fixes.
I'm not even sure it doesn't provoke a conversation. It provokes a conversation about itself and its missed opportunities.
Yeah.
It doesn't provoke a conversation about like AI. Like I don't feel challenged in my beliefs about
that's
AI.
True. That's fair.
By this movie. Yeah. Like, because I'm willing, if AI was as human as it is in this movie, not much of a, it's not, they'd be marching with the writers.
Yeah. Fair enough. Yes.
You know. All right. So we've gotten about done here.
Yep.
What do you got? What's a pluggable? Do you got pluggables, Dan?
You know what? I have started writing a new column for Chatham House. It's on their magazine called The World Today. The name of the column will be Eagle View, and so it'll be coming out bi-monthly. It's about Eagle View because it's about world politics from a decidedly American perspective. So, and that was
did
the
you
request.
name that, Dan?
I can neither confirm nor deny that.
Because you're so good in renaming the creator. I guess we should also mention, speaking of pluggables, we should plug ourselves.
Yep.
There will be an ad following this outro if you are not a patron. I always think it's weird they have ads at the end of podcast. For me, I guess that's just a trap, like if you're working out or something. You can't.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we haven't mentioned the Discord very much, except to say they note that I'm bad with names. But the Discord is our probably favorite
strongest
reason.
It's a good draw
to become a patron. It's a great community, and there's something for everyone, and as little as $5 a month. And as far as me, I am a columnist for the New Republic and NBC.com. I have a website, Dan.
It's at www.annamariecox.com.
Spelled the same, pronounced differently. I am also on Blue Sky at Anna Marie Cox. I'm also at Instagram. I'm wrong. I am at Anna Marie Cox in Instagram. Instagram. One of those things.
And I am at Dan Dresner on Blue Sky. And, I also have a Substack. It's called Dresner's World. You can potentially take a look at that.
Good luck with that, Dan.
Yeah, thank you.
Good luck. And upcoming, we have Mary Shelley's Frankenstein and No One Will Save You. And until then,
keep this channel open for more.